Z Sports' two-a-day series now in Newcomerstown, covering some Trojan football. Of course, this brought to you by Simona Boltaron, Nick McWilliams, Joe Geckler here to bring you our two-a-day coverage of Newcomerstown. And Joe, it's kind of crazy to think last year what Newcomerstown was able to accomplish. Obviously, first ever playoff run in school history. Got to host their first playoff game, finished 8-3. Trojans got to be riding high.
Absolutely, and they got a lot of that talent back here, of course, with Fish at quarterback, Bunk Millender, to name a couple of guys that they have back. But a great season, 8-3 last year, as you mentioned. The playoff run, I believe it was the first one since 2003, 2002, somewhere around there. But yeah, great season last year for the Newcomerstown Trojans. We got to see them with their big win up at Malvern, and that was a fun game, overtime win at that. And of course, you know, they go on to the playoffs and get to the first round. And like I said, first time in a while to get back to the playoffs, but a lot of expectations coming into this season.
And their first outright IVC title since 2001.
If I remember right, they were undefeated in the IVC. They were 5-0.
I believe so.
And so, yeah,
yes.
that's a big building block as well. Coach Gadd has done such a great job here over his 7 seasons as head coach for the Trojans. And, you know, last year was the most successful that he's had, and he just wants to build on that.
Yeah, it definitely does. And entering his 7th year, obviously the 2 playoff appearances with the COVID year, everyone having that, but then being able to host their own playoff game. We know how excited they are, and that's kind of the cool thing that we get to see when we come into these first few days of two-a-days. We walked in here, everyone seemed light, everyone seemed happy, but it is still business as usual. These guys are working hard out here. And there's a couple, and we'll ask Coach Gadd about it, but a little bit of speed out there, I'd imagine.
There is. There's some wheels for Newcomerstown. Of course, they run the ball predominantly, 30, 40 times a game. They'll mix in a couple pop passes here and there. They did it last year. We saw them in 2 games, week 2, I believe it was, and then up at Malvern. They can throw the ball. Clayton Fish does a great job of throwing the ball. He's got a couple of targets, but of course they run that option-style offense, and they're going to run it down your throat.
Absolutely are. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to talk to head coach Dirk Gadd about his thoughts of this team this year and what we can expect from the Trojans in 2023. Welcome back to our two-a-day series, once again here from Newcomerstown, covering some Trojan football. An exciting season upcoming. Head coach Dirk Gadd now joining us. And Coach, 8-3 last year. We know what kind of memorable run it was that Newcomerstown went on, obviously, with the playoff berth. Tell me, what going into this season, are those expectations still there? I mean, it's almost hard to look past those after having such a historic run.
We definitely have high expectations for this season. We had, our best summer I think we've had for sure since I've been here. I can't imagine that we've ever had a better summer in the history of Newcomerstown football as far as the amount of kids that we're getting here, the attendance. I had several kids. I think we had 28, 29 liftings this off season, and I had several kids that had perfect attendance to that. So the kids are bought in. They have high expectations for this season. I told them last year after our playoff loss to West Jeff, we need to play every down throughout the season like it's a playoff down, because that's a different type of football, and the kids have really embraced that.
Now, how vital is a season like you guys had last year to continue building a program? You said about buying in. We saw how the community came together, and with all the hype that was going around Trojan football. How have you seen that in the offseason kind of trickle over?
Learning to win takes a while, and it took longer than I would have liked it to here, but we have a special group of kids that came through right now, and they know how to win, and they expect to win. So really, it's a credit to them, and their win every game mentality and never be out of the game that has been great for us so far.
Now, you mentioned the special group of kids, and I know it's always not fun for a coach to have to talk about some of their key losses from last year. Brandon Weber and David Newkirk, the names that we kind of had jumping off the page. We know how much those guys meant to this program, but seeing all these other players from last year's team come back and be hungry for more, that has to be a good feeling.
Yeah, Brandon and David and Hunter, they were big losses for us last year. The positive there is there's only a handful of them that we lost, but it's hard to replace kids like that. Kids that have been in the program for 4 years and dedicated a lot of time to it. Brandon obviously scored a lot of touchdowns for us last year. But we have some kids that are going to step up and fill those positions. But just like every team, you've plugged the next guy up, next guy in, and that's what we're planning on doing.
Now, speaking of plugging in some players, I mean, there's going to be some on here you don't have to plug in. They obviously had lots of contributions last year. Bunk Millender, Clayton Fish, Carter McConnell, Tanner Smith, and Dom Singer, all names that we talked about last year. And you kind of almost know what to expect, I'd imagine, with them, just given that varsity experience they had last year.
Yeah, and the great thing is they know, their expectations for themselves have went up. So we expect big things out of them. We have everybody on our offensive line is back too, which, with those guys carrying the ball, those O-linemen up front are really going to help us and help them have a lot of success in the backfield. So we're looking forward to that.
Now, I already know the answer to this, but I just had to ask this almost with a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. How much passing is going to be in Newcomerstown's approach this year?
Well, hopefully not much. If things are going well, we don't really throw it too often. But if we're out there slinging it around, things aren't going the way we want it to. At least they're not going the way I want it to. Maybe Coach Baker would like to throw it a little more, but we'll mix some passes in like we always do, but not too many of them, hopefully.
Well, there's a reason I asked that, though, because we were talking beforehand here before we got on camera. Clayton Fish, your quarterback, just a sophomore last year, came into that role and we thought handled it great. 11 touchdowns, just the one interception, better than 50% completion rate, and 780 yards. So when you guys did have to throw it, I mean, Clayton was putting it on the money.
Yeah, I think Clayton was maybe pushing 70% completion rate. It was way up there. Clayton made big throws when he needed to. When we throw the ball, we expect it to go for a big play, and Clayton didn't miss very many of those throws, and our receivers caught the ball. We didn't have many drops, so that helped us a lot too.
Now on defense, we've been focusing mostly on the offense, but I know Brandon and David both had some good contributions, as well as Hunter on defense. So what's kind of going to be the approach maybe for replacing them on the defensive side of the ball?
We got some guys. Carter McConnell's back on defense. He's probably our most aggressive kid right now. He's got a nasty streak in him. So we're looking for big things out of him. He's playing inside backer for us. He should be our leading tackler if things are going the way they're supposed to. We got some guys in the second. I thought defense was an area that we really needed to get better at. So that's something we're focusing on this year. But we got some new kids coming up. Martin Hernandez, he's going to help us on the defensive line. He's a freshman. He'll probably start for us on the defensive line. We're looking for big things out of him. But overall, we need to get better on the defensive side of the ball.
Absolutely, Coach. And I just wanted to run down your schedule here. Obviously, some of these teams haven't played last season, but you opened things up with Bern Union, a playoff team from last year, did not play them. That's a tough week one matchup, but you guys hope maybe that sets the tone early on in the season, maybe gets them that good test early on.
Yeah, your first game is really important no matter who you play, and we have a tough one with a Bern Union team that has had playoff success in the past. So we need to be ready to go for that game, and I'm not trying to look too far forward in there, but we added some teams to our off-season schedule, a Barnesville team that's tough year in and year out, just a very physical football team, a Martins Ferry team that's a very football tradition-rich area, so they're also going to be a quality opponent this year.
Now, something I found very interesting, and I guess I didn't really realize this until we went back through your schedule from last year and who you guys have on the docket coming up. I mean, on the right side of your schedule and kind of the back half, all IVC teams and all wins that you guys picked up last year. So how important is it going to be for you guys to, again, have that success in the IVC?
It's definitely important. I mean, our goal is to win the conference, but none of those games are given. It's hard to win football games. I've figured that out over the years. We don't take any of them for granted. So, we don't really look ahead. We definitely feel like we can compete with all of those teams, but nothing's guaranteed. So we got to work for it, and that's what we're planning on doing.
Just one final question for you, Coach. Obviously, very early on in the training camp period and the two-a-day period, what do you think that you want to see your team improve upon the most moving forward as we get closer to the regular season?
Get better on the defensive side of the football. We need to get better on the defensive side of the ball. We need to have some more shutouts this year. I think we were a young team last year, and I think our age really showed on the defensive side of the ball. We're older this year, junior heavy, and hopefully that pays off for us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time as always, Coach, and good luck to the Trojans. So happy to be back with covering some Newcomerstown football.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
Head Coach Dirk Gadd for the Newcomerstown Trojans. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back for more from our two-a-days coverage after this. a big thank you to head coach Dirk Gadd and everybody here on the Newcomerstown Trojans, of course, the staff, all the players, and the great hospitality we always get when we're in Trojans country. Couldn't ask for a better day to start off some two-a-days, and, I'm watching all the conditioning and stuff that this team does, and there is going to be no excuse. I know Coach Gadd's going to have these kids in shape. It's just running.
Yeah, the conditioning right now is probably some of the most important stuff going on at practices. But you know what? I'm thankful for. We're out here, like you said, a beautiful morning. It's not hot. It's kind of overcast, kind of cool out here. Actually, our first stop was kind of chilly. Actually, we get there and it's like, ooh, it's kind of chilly a little bit. But the days that I played back in the '90s, it was 115 degrees at 8 o'clock in the morning. But the global warming thing, I don't think that's happening right now. But it's nice and cool. Beautiful morning here at Newcomerstown. Great to see the Trojans and Coach Gadd, and I know they're looking for big things, so it's going to be a lot of fun for them.
Well, I can assure you that these kids are happy that the sun hasn't really come out too much yet. But again, to wrap up another two-a-day segment, big thank you to Newcomerstown, a big thank you to Joe Geckler. I'm Nick McWilliams. Be sure to tune back in as we will have another two-a-day segment coming up from a high school near you. Check us out on social media. We'll see you soon.